can tell you all those details. I'm sorry, Kevin, I don't know how to pronounce your organization, but at some point you will come and tell us exactly how it's pronounced. But I know it's to do with hunger and life. Yeah, that people should live to enjoy hunger. No, that's not the translation. No. Yeah, all right. But he will speak to us. On the other side, as you can see, we have value-based education, And it's all about parenting, teaching, and modeling children. And with us, we have a very able professor, Professor George Nyabuga. Kindly, if you can raise your hand. So, yeah, from the University of Nairobi. He'll speak to us in a couple of minutes. Then we also had hoped to get Harun Mohammed Yusuf, but he's not in, so he has sent a representative. I know Amka, I forgot the first name. Joyce. Yeah, so Joyce is going to speak to us about education in a moment. So value-based education is really about the booklets you have, a research you have, and Prof will speak to us about it in a couple of minutes. So today is divided into two. So we're going to have a parallel session. So after this first session, which is prayer and then a report of yesterday, after that we'll have a very quick introduction of the research and we'll be told what's in food security in a nutshell so that we can decide where to go. Those interested in food security will have the whole morning up to 11, up to 12 to discuss matters of food security. Those interested in value-based education will have their session on value-based education. So we are running like two parallel thematic areas. So if you choose food security or food insecurity or food sovereignty, you probably will hang in there until 12. Okay, is that clear? Yeah, and those who choose to go the education way, you'll also have, as soon as we break from here, the next time we meet at the plenary will be at 12. And at that point, we expect some guests, including, as you can see in your program, the Honorable Mdavadi. Hopefully he shows up. But regardless, we will have had a deep interaction on those two thematic areas. So that's how the program is set for the day. And so at this point, I guess, is the order of the day clear? Is it clear? Yes. All right. So may I now move to our rapporteur, Chief Rapporteur, Sam Mkundi, to give us the happenings of yesterday, summary of the happenings of yesterday. Karibu.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. God is good all the time. Yeah, so my business this morning is just to take you through speed on what we had yesterday. And what we have here is a snapshot. It's not a detailed account of what we had yesterday, but it's a feeling of what transpired both in plenary and also in the breakaway groups. And also we were able to pick a few contributions even from participants as they were able. And with my able team, this is what we were able to capture. And just in case you find somebody dozing near you, know they are part of my team because they slept very late. So as I think it is well introduced, that's what we are having. And I want us to go straight to the next thing to say that it is true that the earth is the Lord's. That was kind of a consensus. God-given resources are supposed to unite us, not to divide us. And then we had a message from Laudato Si, we are called to stewardship, not dominance. Very, very brief. We move on. And in yesterday, this is what we had. We had an occasion which was building on an engagement of 14 counties by Jesuit Hakimani Center. This was what we were marking. And over 300 men and women of honor, 10 panelists, 6 moderators, 14 strong rapporteurs team, 2 bishops and a host of religious and civil society leaders, funding agencies, DAI and UKAID. We had also 2 plenary sessions, 3 breakaway sessions, 5 partner organizations as listed there, WAF, KMCP, Pax Romana, KCCB, CJPC, QUER, those. That is how we were composed yesterday. We move on, and we had some key messages. That one key message that kept hovering in the sessions was that all persons are meant to be advocates, supporters, and defenders of environment. There is everything for our needs, but nothing enough for our greed. One of the speakers was able to take us through that. We agreed that there will be need for change of attitude in so many ways, which we not elaborate now. Also, there is the question of intergenerational responsibility. The bishop, in the beginning, opened by telling us that today is the elder brother of tomorrow. So everyone has a responsibility, the old, the young. And then also that environmental conservation is culture and education. Honorable, Our Lady Honorable was able to take us through that, and that's how we captured it. As we moved on, we want to do some reality check. And this is what surfaced as we tried to deal with the reality. One, it's true that there is some effort to conserve that are gaining traction, especially in base communities. There is evidence of that. Just to begin on a positive note. However, the rest also appeared that there was inter-county, inter-ethnic conflicts around water and natural resources. That surfaced in so many different example scenarios. We also realized that climate change is a threat to both human and animal life. They came from the very beginning through a number of the interactions we had during the day. It was interesting just to read an example given to us end of the day by Honorable Madego that there is, yes, affluence by factories into rivers, but also we have raw sewage from the coastal hotels to the sea. I thought that was important because we concentrate on some lines, we forget other areas that are really as dangerous. Reality check 2, the boomerang effect. In one of the discussions that it was clarified that about 7 billion of our debt is attributable to air pollution. We will not explain that so much. The other thing is that water availability is there through BOSAS. We were wondering whether there is a correct spelling. You know these things that have cartels, you are even not able to capture the spelling. So is that the correct spelling of BOSAS? Yeah, but dry taps in the city. Yet there is enough water through the BOSAS. So, and then also, in the long run, the poor suffer most from an environmental degradation. Reality check 3. Is buying bottled water sinful? it was a question, but I think it has a bit of weight to get to understand what are the dynamics behind that. When we start buying in bottled water to drink, when is the next time, what is the next water we shall need to buy? Okay, there is plentiful water for people far away, far-flung areas, but no access to communities at source. That came out in different examples. Then in one of the discussions, there was the question of the climate paradox. How do we deal with this? We are talking of shared space. We are talking of carbon credit. Let us plant trees here, but certain fellows there say, let us continue with our industrialization. So, and yet, that what the pollution happening there will still meet us because we share the same space. So we are wondering now, what is the balance here? There is a paradox. What is so good to do about the environment? So there are issues there that we were really grappling with. We came to the point now, the crux of the matter is on the water management in Kenya. And in this one, there's a lot of contradiction. Some people are suffering due to excessive water. The example of Budalangi. Others are suffering because there is no water. This is the reality we have. But is it a question of lacking or is it a question of how, Then we came to the question of institutions. We found the duplicity of roles. There are 14 institutions dealing in the same resource called water, which have competing and conflicting roles and regulations. In some of our discussions, actually, we even were able to see that. The same institutions presenting and they are defining things differently, yet it's around the same. So there is that. Also, we found a very important comment that there are existing regulations, but there is lacking moral, ethical commitment to respect even those vague regulations that are there, and even compliance, and also there is an attending lack of institutional drive. The institutions here don't have a motivation by themselves to ensure they meet compliance. You move because you are pushed. So the internal drive of our institutions is not there. And that is possibly what we are suffering from. So that with all the policies that we are, with all these institutions, nothing is moving. To create one dam, it requires external experts with all this. So the lack of institutional drive. But I think there was some hope. Technology and creativity in conservation. I want to say one of our speakers, Olekina, he talked of a very important aspect, idea that has already happened. Aerial seeding, where 20 million trees have been planted in Narok, I think in Mau, just by appealing to technology, something that would take years to accomplish. Other people in one of the discussions were talking of planting 40,000 trees during the dry season in a dry part in Kenya. I had it as I moved along. Another creativity was given by Reverend Karaoke. Why don't we use church services? When we are baptizing, let somebody plant a tree. When we are confirming, if there is a funeral, plant a banana instead of flowers. All these kind of things were put across so that there could be moments in which we can ensure we plant trees. An argument rose later in the day about how about when I plant trees and then it's for sale. And then there was this, you could also plant trees and benefit on them without cutting them. The question of the carbon credit dynamics, which needs to be understood, comes there. In the next plane, there were some proposed solutions towards the end of the day. One, they already had a working document towards policy for sharing sources done by GSC. That's already a proposal of a solution. There is also, however, within the same discussion, the need for policy framework for sharing resources in up and the downstream communities in all the water basins in Kenya. Let's not just look at where GSC did their study. How about all the places in Kenya where there is water flowing upstream, downstream from up, all that. Then the question of need for paradigm shift. Paradigm shift, an important aspect was put is plant trees but somebody doesn't keep telling us don't cut trees. And I think it's also important, as we plant, also don't cut. At least if it is to be cut, let it be done in some orderly form. That I thought was important because tunapanda miti lakini nobody tells us don't cut. Yeah, so that was very, very important among other paradigm shifts that we suggested. But that was just an example. A proposed solution, plate 2, talks of adopt environmental conservation as an integral part of evangelization and religious rights. I think that from the example that I gave earlier on, that makes a lot of sense. It's a good proposal. Harvest rainwater and secure practice through policy and education. Let people understand that little water coming and fresh, it's very, very good. Let's educate ourselves to that, but also policy can come. What does it mean? If you are constructing a house in the city or anywhere else, you should also be able to harvest that water. When we have some little shower in Nairobi, we also run the problem of flooding because nobody taps that water. Then the next day we have no water in our taps. So that could be put in policy. Also, elect the right leaders in political leadership, those who care about environment. That is important because this country, maybe unlike other countries, political leadership has a lot of premium. And therefore, the most important thing is not to ignore it and keep talking against it, is to put the right people there. I think that seems to be a good agreement. Now, I just have put a few things. These are not all the reference, but at least if you want to get more, look at the GSC report on the stakeholder engagement in Upper and Lower Tana Basin. Laudato Si is a very important document. It was referenced to. We are Christians, use the African Bible. The compendium of the Catholic social teaching can be very good. And the climate smart water governance, that working document that we had yesterday would be one. It's not all, but just from our team, that's what we proposed. I know you had been given other links, but I also want you to look at our Twitter handle. If you're on Twitter, please handle that. I only know it is handled. How you do it, please proceed. If you want to stream live, just get there. We shall meet there. All right. So thank you very much. Asante, merci, grazie, asante sana.
Naitwa rasmi.
Yes. So I think those who were there yesterday, does the report sound like the work you did? If like you'll do in minutes, do you approve the minutes as reported? Yes. All right. All right. So that's validation. So I think we concur that that reflects in a very summarized form our discussions of yesterday. Now, as we said today, we have these two thematic areas, food insecurity and food security. And so we want to move on to the new day. And the way we're going to do it, we have three, one speaker who will represent the person who will have given us a keynote speech, who is Harun Mohamed Yusuf, but is represented by Joyce. So we will begin with Joyce to give us a presentation, and then we will have very brief introduction of the two thematic areas. Kevin Shingos will tell us a little bit about what food security is about, and yes, and then Professor George Nyabuga will also guide us very briefly to understand what the value-based education is, and that will help us now move into our discussion, different parallel conference areas. So may I now ask Joy to come and speak on behalf of Harun Mohammed Yusuf.
The conveners of the conference, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Now, I take this opportunity to thank God for this moment. I'm here to represent the CEO of NACONEC, and as a representative, I'll just do what he was supposed to do. He had some presentation, which I'm going to present to you. I take this opportunity to be an honor to NACONEC. NACONEC stands for the National Council for Nomadic Education in Kenya. It is a council within the Ministry of Education that was formed to coordinate and spearhead education activities in nomadic region. The regions that we cover are regions where we have pastoralists, we have hunters and gatherers, and we also have fishermen. The scope of NACONEC starts from Mandera to Homa Bay. And when I say Homa Bay, people wonder, are nomads in Homa Bay? They are there. We have the fishing, nomads who move from one island to another. So we cover Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Tana River, Kajiado, Narok, Baringo, parts of Laikipia, some parts of Kilifi, Lamu. In total, we have about 17 counties that we deal with. So we cover a great area. The government of Kenya has made a lot of input interventions to ensure that learners in these areas get the basic quality education that other learners in the country get. But what we end up with is that the performance keeps on going down, the enrollment goes down, the dropout rate is high. So due to that, NACONEC was formed so that we can find out really how to uplift these learners in these regions. Our offices are in Uchumi House, 6th floor. That is where we are, right at the middle of town. The objectives of NACONEC, I will read as he had planned to do. NACONEC is to initiate the development, implementation, and review of policies on all matters relating to nomadic education in Kenya. It mobilizes funds from various sources to run its activities. It is supposed to prepare a reliable statistic of nomads and their school-age children and establish a data bank. This is a community that moves, it is on the move. So sometimes you want to know the enrollment of learners in schools, but you find that most of them have gone away with their parents. They'll come back when the situation is better. So NACONEC, what we have done, we have been going in schools, visiting those counties and even visiting the schools to find the actual data, enrollment data of the learners in those schools. We also coordinate research activities on nomadic education in Kenya. We establish appropriate linkages and partnership with other participating departments and agencies. If you go on the ground, you'll find so many NGOs just promoting education in those regions. But you don't really know what they do. So what we do, we link up with them so that we avoid a lot of duplication of things, so that we can also know what they are actually up to. Places like Mandera, Garissa, and Wajir, there is a lot of radicalization. You never know what people are doing outside there. So NACONEC is out there in the field to see to it that the kind of education that our learners get is what they are required to get. We also use innovative, flexible, and mobile interventions and partnering with non-state education providers and communities. That is just in a nutshell of what we do. If I'm supposed to read everything, I would read and take a lot of time. Now, in regard to value-based education, we have done, being a young council, we have tried our best to reach our parents and the community through advocacy. We have had a series of meetings with the boards of management and the parents so that we can sensitize them on value-based education. We also know that through sports and games, learners get to interact with each other, and it promotes peace and unity, therefore creating peaceful coexistence among our learners. So what NACONEC has done, we identified 3 counties, which is Mandera, Lamu, and Garissa, and provided sports equipment to 10 schools in each county so that we can encourage them to participate more in games and sports. That one we did last year. We have also had a series of workshops with secondary school teachers in some of our counties and instructors in vocational and training colleges, institutions. And we have sensitized them in collaboration with Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development on value-based education, because we know when we inculcate values in our learners, we are going to have a peaceful environment for learning. As we have been doing that, we have faced a lot of challenges which kind of drag us and put us down. But we thank God that with the support of our mother ministry, we have been able to stand up to where we are. But I would like to read some of the challenges that we go through as we engage in our activities as a council. The mobile nature of the community makes the provision of education in these areas very difficult. Like last month we were in Baringo and Samburu, and we realized that in some schools, students have gone home in primary schools until where you had over 350 learners, you now only have 56. This is because they have moved away with their parents. And it is because of the climatic conditions and other issues. There is persistent insecurity occasioned by conflicts over pasture and water issues in some of the nomadic counties. And this interrupts learning. There is acute teacher shortage. It is in public domain where we have had teachers moving from those regions to better regions because of the hostile environment and the insecurity. So most of our schools do not have enough teachers. And that is why the other day we tried our best that the grade be lowered so that we can have more teachers coming from the communities to be trained, but we failed. But we are still pushing on. So the teacher-people ratio is very, very, very low. You find a teacher teaching over 100 or even 80, and that makes learning the learners cannot get what they really need. Then the infrastructure is also very poor. Because of the sparsity of the region, monitoring and supervision of learning becomes very hard. Some places you cannot even reach because there are no means of transport. Then the poverty index in those regions is very high. So most parents do not take their children to school. And because also of the cultural beliefs, some of them, they look among their children and they take the weakest. The weakest is taken to school. But the one which is a bit bright and stronger is left to take care of the animals. So most of the time when we go out there, we try to talk to them, and through the chiefs and the local authority to entice them so that they can bring the children back to school. When it comes to participation in education matters, some of them do not even avail themselves for meetings because they don't even understand. And remember, the level of illiteracy in those regions are very high. So those are some of the challenges that we go through as we do our activities. There is also child labor, and there is early marriages and the rest, which is in public domain. And because of time, I beg to stop there.
A snapshot. Snapshot. A short snap. No. Whatever it is, anyway.
Thanks, Elias. Good morning, everyone. Elias sort of ambushed me to make this presentation, so I'm going to blitz through it, and hopefully I cover a lot of things that he wanted me to cover. But let me start by saying that this is an important research, and this is an important conversation that we ought to have, or should have had, maybe many years ago, as we try and ensure that our education system is fit for purpose, and it's meaningful to the learners and obviously the country as we seek to move forward. But let me just take you back a few years ago, and I'm sure all of you remember reports of widespread, massive cheating in exams. That is, of course, before the Cabinet Secretary then, Fred Matiang'i, and the Chair of NEC, Professor George Magoha, came to the scene and ostensibly cleaned up the process and dealt away with the cheating. But what we learned from that exercise and the cheating itself is that there ought to be values that should be upheld, values that ought to be respected. But also raised so many questions, and these are the questions that we dealt with in the research, particularly questions regarding the quality of our education and whether students, parents, teachers, the government and schools, and sometimes these are religious schools that you expect to obviously uphold and respect some of these values. And whether those institutions were actually complicit in the cheating, and whether we are, as a society and as a nation, capable of upholding important values that ought to underpin the way we do things, the way we obviously raise our children, and whether the children themselves actually appreciate and uphold those values in their learning activities, in their various environments, whether it's at home, whether it's in school, whether it's religious spaces. So it's important that we engage in these conversations because oftentimes if we want to make decisions, if we want to formulate policy and contribute to important decisions in society, it's important that we base whatever we have on research, because research helps us understand phenomena and helps us understand and appreciate people's views on various issues. And in this research, we talked with teachers, we talked with experts, we talked with people in various counties, and we sampled 25 counties. So more than half of the counties in this country were involved in this study. It was a multi-method, mixed method research, and we had focus group discussions with children, with experts and teachers in various places. And this is what is contained in this report that you probably all have. But it was fairly clear that whereas all of us understand the values of, for example, honesty, values of industry, values of compassion, values of trust, justice, sometimes because of the pressures that the students face, because of the pressures the students and teachers face, the parents face, oftentimes we are judged by how well we perform in school, not how well-rounded we are. And teachers themselves said they were under immense pressure to perform, and sometimes the rewards that they get and the appreciation that they get is not as a consequence of developing complete children, but how well they do in the exam. And what Joyce said resonated with what we found in our research, that teachers do not have the requisite facilities they are not facilitated enough. They do not have conducive environments sometimes in which to work to develop our children well. So these pressures come to bear on the quality of education, especially when we're looking at holistic education in this country, because often what we have is rote learning. Sometimes the ability of children to regurgitate information, to cram and to reproduce that information without a deeper understanding of what that education means to them and obviously to our society. So I'm sure we will continue with these conversations, but one of the things that we came up with is that there's need for serious culture change, even as we seek especially to adopt what is becoming somewhat controversial, the competency-based curriculum. How well are we prepared for that in terms of holistic learning, in terms of value-based learning? Do we have the material to ensure that that is actually done? So I'm sure we will engage with those conversations in the next session, and I leave it there. Thank you very much.
So when the government and the researchers meet and they concur that there's a problem, where do we take that problem? Maybe we take it to the bishops and the lawyers, Dr. Alutalala. Yeah, but we really appreciate Professor George for that quick overview of the research we've conducted. And without wasting more time, I'd like to invite Kelvin to come, please. First task first, and here you'll be a good student with values. Pronounce for us the organization, and just take about 5 minutes to give an overview. The rest we'll do in the sessions.
Habari asubuhi. Ladies and gentlemen, I've learned in my last 3 years all protocols observed. My name is Kelvin Shingles. I work for an organisation called Weltunga Hilfe. It's actually registered in Kenya as German Agro Action, and one of our prime areas is supporting food security and nutrition. Just to give you a little bit of background into our programming in Kenya, we're situated in a number of counties, some of them at the higher development areas of food security. So looking at our bread basket in Western Kenya, we're supported by the German government and also in partnership with GIZ. We're looking at areas of various value chains, such as the sweet potato value chain, such as the dairy value chain, and looking at capacity building of farmers in relation to soil rehabilitation, reconstruction, to ensure that those productivity levels are at their highest. We also have a social business enterprise, and Kenya, for Weltunga Hilfe, is a bit of a pioneer that we have this social business that is in relationship with Kenya Agriculture Research Organisation, ourselves, and also some researchers that are coming from Germany and the United States in the eradication of striga. Striga being a weed, sometimes known, I believe, as witchweed, that affects maize production in Western Kenya. So at a higher level and at more of the development area, they are the programs that we're working with in Western Kenya, but we're also working in the humanitarian sense. So we're also working in Turkana, we're also in Marsabit, and previously we've been working with partners in Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, and we also have an office base in Tana River. So very much focused on those ASAL regions, looking at the areas of food insecurity in those areas, working with pastoralist communities, looking at building resilience in those pastoralist communities as well. We're also based and working through local partners in Kajiado and Narok, and we also have programs here in central Kenya working with the informal settlement. Weltunga Hilfe has 4 main aims. One, first of all, is to look at building self-help capacities of local communities. So we're very much engaged with civil society, local NGOs, and supporting local communities for future sustainability. Our aim is that all people have a right to a self-determined life and dignity and justice, free from hunger and poverty. And we have in our motto a Zero Hunger 2030 campaign. And this very much aligns to the Kenyan government's strategy of Zero Hunger 2030 as well. Viltonga Helfer is looking also at the support of humanitarian actions, food security and nutrition, support to basic services and infrastructure, and also looking at the wash sector. I hope to inspire some of you to join our discussion this morning, because we'll be looking a little bit more at the Global Hunger Index. This is a research that's been carried out by Viltonga Helfer, also the International Food Policy Research Institute, in coordination with Concern Worldwide and ourselves. And we want to see how that has impacted Kenya, looking at 3 dimensions in regard to food security. One of those dimensions being inadequate food supply, so looking at undernourishment, and the issues of hidden hunger. We often look at hunger in regard to those staples that we have and whether our belly is full. But we have a phenomenon, or what we like to describe as an iceberg effect, that we only see the top of that iceberg and we don't see the surrounding problems beneath that. And those surrounding problems beneath is the hidden hunger. And that I mean that the micro deficits in our consumption and the amount of meals that we're taking per day. We'll also investigate a little bit about child undernourishment and where Kenya stands in regard to wasting and stunting. And we'll also look a little bit on where Kenya globally stands in regard to child mortality of under 5s in relation to food security. Within our presentation, I'd also like to look at not only Kenya's key position in regard to food security, but there's a statement. Kenya is regarded as a middle to lower income country. And we have you have a very much a strong growing economy. But we're also facing persistent challenges. And one of those persistent challenges is food security and nutrition, particularly in those ASIL areas within Kenya. I also want to look at why Kenya is particularly struggling with food security. And we're in a situation now that we have a drought situation. Even though we've been blessed with some rains at the moment, we still have counties that are prone to drought and climatic shocks. And we're in those situations now that we have predictions that we could have approximately 2.5 million that are food insecure by July 2019. I also would like to investigate a little bit more on the right to food and the state's obligations to the right to food, and maybe some areas that Viltonga Helfer as an organisation would like to propose as a strategy moving forward. Having all that said, I think my 5 minutes is up, and I hope that I've inspired some of you to be part of this discussion that goes forward in relation to food security and nutrition. So thank you very much.
My first task is to pronounce. Now you have to block your ears. Viltonga Helfer. Viltonga Helfer. One more trial. All right, like a student who went to a good ASAL school. Viltonga Helfer. All right, but thank you very much, Kelvin. We really appreciate it. I think he has inspired some of you to join that group. But you know, a good cake has also some icing, isn't it? All right, so Father James, can you add to those good remarks from Viltonga Helfer? All right, Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed to shorten the time. So I'm also pitching for food security so that we can get some members joining us. So thank you, Shingos, for making a good start. Mine is going to be very short. I'll try as much as possible, hopefully. Akimani did a very, not a rigorous research on food security. It was like a perception survey or indicative survey. Just we took Nairobi a bit and Kajiado. And what we came up with were two things on crop farming and livestock production. What holds both of these two wings together is we are proposing that we should move away from basic need approach to food to right-based approach. What do we mean? With basic need approach, food is taken as, or availability of food is taken as relief, and that's a very common phenomenon in Kenya. Philanthropy is a good thing. I'm not here to come and bash the government when we see our ministers going and giving maize and food, and then they think that so that's good, because we have had parts of the country are suffering from hunger, so you are moved and you want to go and give food. But we know it's not sustainable, and it has its own challenges, and it's very expensive. So we are proposing a movement towards rights-based approach, and we'll give you more details, because with rights-based approach, what you do, it obligates the state. And when the state is obligated, then it has to come up with approaches and methodologies. That means it has to put its acts together. Look at the experts, food experts, look at the scientists, look at the researchers, you look at the market, so that your citizens don't need to keep a bowl so that you put the food. So we will talk a bit on the underlying factors that are affecting crop farming, especially for the smallholder farmers, and livestock production. There is hope, so we will discuss. Finally, just a little question I'm always wondering with this country. Since 1963, we have had so many instances of famine. And recently, our country just got the first Eurobond, second Eurobond, and now I think they're going for the third one. I'm always wondering, if I go and get debt because maybe I want to solve a certain problem, why should my family suffer from hunger? I went out and I looked for money, no? And I said, give me money, I have some business here, and I will pay you back. If you go to the bank and get credit, should your family sleep hungry that day? No. So food for thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was wondering if we need food for thought or food for the stomach, but I will leave that for now. Thank you very much. I think now you understand what each group is likely to be discussing. You can choose, and we are not going to throw a lot and say, you go to education, you go to food security. I think you have heard the invitations from both thematic areas, so it's up to you to choose which one you will go for. So I would like to recognize some of our visitors, guests who will be speaking with us at some point. Obviously on the high table we have a number of guests. We have Dr. Alutalala, who was with us yesterday, and most of you probably know him. He's a great commentator on TV, radio, and a very strong public interest litigator, lawyer. Yeah, so very passionate about justice matters in this country. You know Sam Mukundi, who is the chair of Pax Romana, Kenya, who also gave us a report of yesterday. You know Dr. John Nyambega, who is also from Pax Romana, and will be animating some of the groups. And someone in the middle. Who is in the middle? Yeah, Bishop will give us just a quick word in a second so that we break for our plenary. But I'd like to recognize two guests. I don't know if Dr. Gadigi, all right, he could be on the way. But I wish to recognize our dear friend former Deputy Governor Isiolo. Kindly, if you can stand and wave. Yeah. He's been with us for a while. Is that the clap? Your food is secure or clap is secure also? All right. And I also like to recognize Professor Wamboi Kiai. Yeah, please appreciate her. One lady who is not up here but a strong member of this organizing team is Aminata. Aminata, can you come and... all right. So Aminata is from WAV. So men, be very careful. These are women against violence. Keep distance. Yeah. If you bring trouble here, you will be sorted out. As you know, we write as we write in books from, I don't know, from Hitler to Idi Amin. Now we can say from FIDA to WAV. Yeah, so women against the violence. But we're very peaceful here. All right, I'd also like to recognize the presence of Dr. Sheila. Where are you? Oh, yeah, she is. Oh, please welcome. Very strong in value-based education, I believe. In education, at least for many, many years. Very resourceful this morning. We have someone from the Ministry of Education, Fidelis. Now, Fidelis, please. I have to, you and Kelvin are here to torture me. Let me see if I can pronounce this. Nahulo. Nahulo. All right. Karibu sana, Fidelis. I think with that introduction, just before we explain the modalities of where to go, I'll ask the bishop to also give us a very brief word on both thematic areas, or just one, but he will speak a little later when we have a plenary, but just an opening word or two. And I'll ask Shete, wherever you are, to be ready after the bishop to tell us where to go. Karibu. Can we welcome him? Thank you.
All the protocols must be observed. Why am I saying this is because the academia, the researchers are here with the report, and they observed all the protocols in the sense that there's a reference document, there are people who conducted the research and contained in the report, and in this house we have an opportunity to meet the constellation of professori who are here, and the academician, and people who are actually on the society articulating issues, including the lawyers and even institutions like Pax Romana. And it's an opportunity to interact with them. Because you know, when we talk about ask, seek, and knock in Luke chapter 11, is about the prayer that our Lord taught his disciples, because they were asking, how do we know? How can we pray? How can we live life? And he said, you ask and seek and knock. And you ask for a report. You must do a research. You must seek knowledge, seek. And then knock at the doors. Now we know if we are armed, we are able to knock at the doors and be able to present with eloquence and also confident such a report, such things that are coming from here with confidence. And as we said here last night, that we must be people who have a duty to enforce things, not to force, but to enforce, the capacity to influence. So I thank the whole morning session. I think I'm in a school, and I've registered in this school since yesterday, and I'm really, I hope at the end of the day, I'm not looking for a certificate, nothing to be lowered. We don't want to lower the grades so that we can. But yes, and I think it was said by the ministry, which is, of course, their compassionate heart for the people. But at the end of it, we want all to rise up and truly be counted as a transparent and accountable people in this society. Thank you very much. I wish you a very good night.
So let's just confirm. Humphrey is around. All right. Okay. For it's probably outside. And education. Kafaiko. Dr. Peter Kavaiko. Okay, it's at the back. All right, so may I ask Shete to come over and tell us where to go?
Good morning. My name is Shete Josephat. I am from Jesuit Akimani. I'm asked to first ask for consensus from the participants, whether you want to go for tea now, and then and then we have the plenary and the breakout groups, or we have a few. At least 1 hour or 30 minutes of plenary, then we go for tea. So let us first, how many say we go for tea now? How many say we go for plenary first, then we go for tea? Okay. So the ayes have it. Now, let us... So we will go for tea now, but after tea, the people interested in education, those ones who are interested in listening about education, all of us will come here. We'll come back here. We'll come here. And then when you are here, that is when you'll be told, after the plenary here, you'll be